Hi, aloha, and welcome to the That's Not Normal podcast. Me
Yes.
and Michelle have made a change. If you've been listening to us for a while, we decided to change the name to the podcast for a very specific reason. I think we talked about this on a show coming up when it kind of came to us, and we were like, okay, this is a cool name. We talked about it and
And
thought
you
it
seem very
resonated.
adamant about switching the
I was
name.
very adamant, and I'll tell you why, because it's one of, those psychic kid things, those intuitive things where it just resonated with where we're at this point in time in the podcast, but also where we're at as far as our conversations go and how that sort of developed over the years. So I've probably changed the name of my podcast. I don't even know how many times, but I also changed the way I'm teaching and all that as things shift, as my focus changes. And the issue with the other podcast name, The Empowered Empath, is we felt that it didn't embrace a lot of the other topics that we would want to talk about. And so it kind of felt confining, if you will, with the other name. And that's why we wanted to change it because this suits us better.
Yeah.
And we like to talk about different things that we want to broaden the spectrum of the subjects that we cover and not feel like we have to fit into a category.
Yeah, because I think if people would only know what our phone calls were
Oh
like, I
my.
mean, we get into some weird stuff, and then every time we start talking about weird stuff, I'd be like, "This should be a podcast." But yeah, it didn't really fit under the empowered empath
No,
umbrella,
it just didn't
and
fit anymore. No.
that's not normal is so much more interesting and will catch your attention far greater than the
Yes.
empowered empath. So
Well, on so many levels, and it encompasses more of kind of our regular conversations.
yeah.
And people do ask us about that, and they like to hear our regular conversations. So we wanted to expand on what we were talking about. So don't forget, we will still be on the same platforms. So you can still have us, if you've subscribed to us, we're just going to change the name. So if we show up differently in your YouTube or Apple or whatever, that's why. But it will still be, you'll still have access to all the other podcasts and then plus the new direction that we're going.
Yes,
So,
but if this is the first time that you're finding us,
yes,
be sure to subscribe
yes,
on whatever platform that you found us on. And if
yes.
you like today's content or topic, please give the video a like.
Absolutely. Or you want us to explore other topics. I love it when people leave other topics that they want us to explore and expand upon, or experiences maybe that they've had, that sort of thing,
Yeah.
or whatever. Comment whatever you want to,
Yeah.
what the weather's like
All
where you're
comments
at.
welcome.
Yes. Okay. So we got on a subject that we thought it would be good for the That's Not Normal podcast. And let's expand upon why we got to that name. Most of the things we talk about, we feel are normal,
Yes.
but other people would be like, that's not normal. It's not that we don't feel like it's normal. It's other people would be like, that's a weird topic and that's not normal. So the topics that we want to cover, I would say, doesn't fit into the social norms of normal.
Yeah.
And so we love that. That's what we resonate with. We want to explore those topics. We want to talk about the topics that everybody else considers not normal.
Yeah.
Okay. So, that being said, I haven't really seen much stuff on this, but we got on the topic of AI and spirituality, or AI and how this is going to look in the future as far as consciousness expansion. I think it's a good topic to cover because that's one of people's greatest fears, is that AI has its own consciousness and that it is going to do things with its own consciousness that are violent, evil.
Well, if
Um,
you've ever seen the Terminator movies, I think your brain goes
yeah,
directly there. You're like, Skynet's gonna take over and we're doomed.
yes.
So
I don't think the movie industry helped at
no.
all. But to tell you the truth, it doesn't help with psychic stuff either.
Yeah.
If we get into poltergeist and or like mediumship or spirits or exploring the metaphysical world, the spiritual realm, You got all the scary movies. I mean, is there really even a movie though that like talks about it in a good way? I don't remember one. I'm sure there's got to be some out there. And then that's another thing. If you know one, you can comment on it.
Yeah.
But like they always have, I mean, maybe the Sixth Sense or something, but they tend to have this negative underlying theme to it
Yeah.
where, spirits are scary and they're dangerous and or they might enter the body and then you have what's it, the exorcist. So um you know I think they're fun topics to create a storyline, I guess, for the movie industry,
It's
and so
entertainment.
they pursue them. What?
I said it's just entertainment, but
Yeah,
yeah.
so
I mean, if you watch even most of, like, romantic love stories and what do you call them, rom-coms, I mean, those are so exotic, like, that's not real life either, so
okay, that's a whole nother
I
show.
know that was a tangent, but
Good comparison. So, anyways, back to the AI thing. I thought I would like to cover this a little bit more from the spiritual aspect. And we had some good discussions about this because I don't think that people understand how it fits in and they don't like correlate it to any spiritual advancement. What I mean by that is this is also another topic, probably another show. But I was talking to one of my colleagues, and things have changed a lot over the years since we've been in the industry professionally. So when we started, well, geez, for me now it's going to be over 30 years. When we started over 30 years ago, we had a really heavily dominant earth energy happening at that moment in time. And because the earth energy was so dominant, the veil was thicker, a lot thicker, and the spiritual realm was not as easy to touch or perceive or break through the thick veil. And so it took a lot of training on our end to really break through that veil and be able to receive information. And that's why when I was younger, we were kind of looked at like even different, a lot more different than they even do now, because it was hard for people to break through their belief system and break through the veil that was very thick at that time. Over the years, the veil has thinned a lot, and I mean a lot. The vibration of the earth has shifted, it's risen quite a bit. It's more in alignment with the spiritual realm and the frequency that it has. So they're closer in frequency. And because they're closer in frequency, I see you have a question. Because they're closer in frequency, this allows the veil to become thinner. And go ahead.
yeah,
What?
so I was gonna say, does this correlate to, what we always hear about, like, moving from the 3D to 4D to
Yes,
5D?
that's exactly what's happening. These things are divinely timed. It wasn't necessarily that everything progressed to a certain amount and then it changed things, although that did amplify the frequency shifting. So the collective consciousness as a whole, the people on earth, and that's what I'm going to when I refer to the collective consciousness, that's what I'm going to be referring to in this podcast, is the people that have incarnated. Also the collective consciousness can include the spiritual realm, but we're just talking about the people on earth. This was something that I think a lot of people or seen and felt a lot of people wanted something different. It got to the point where life was becoming very difficult, it with just 3D rules, with just earthly type rules. And we could feel that there was a missing puzzle piece. So the desire to find this missing puzzle piece led us down the path of wanting to connect or learn more about spirituality and whatnot, our spiritual body, etc. And as this collective desire happened, it helped to shift the Earth's frequency to align more with the spiritual realm. But there was a lot more things that happened during that time as well, as far as planetary alignment, the way that the divine timing was happening, the expansion of the Earth's energy, things of that nature. They all had to be the perfect storm. I don't want to call it a storm though. The perfect alignment, the perfect divine timing, etc., to get us to where we are today. And so where we are today is in this beautiful place, but there's some type of separation in a lot of different aspects, because as we did grow more towards a a more expanded collective consciousness that did include our spiritual selves, our spiritual desires, being tuned into our purpose, our past lives, things of that nature. As we went that direction, so did also technology and other things that they're gravitating towards a lot of advancement, hence the AI conversation. Here's what I find interesting about this whole thing: people want to separate the two, as in AI belongs to earthly technology, I guess, like more
Like
linear
machine
based.
learning or
Yeah,
like yeah.
right. And so when you talk about machine learning, that's about as far away from spirituality as you can get. Like, I mean, if you're talking about machine learning, like now we're just on opposite ends of the spectrum entirely. But yet, here's what I find really interesting: people fear this consciousness of AI. They fear that AI is going to develop a consciousness, and then everything's going to go south from there. Hence, again, the Terminator and all that. Here's what's interesting to me: AI does have a consciousness to it when it comes to the spiritual realm. It is part of the collective consciousness as a whole. So, when I talk about collective consciousness as a whole, we are also talking about the spiritual realm, the whole entire kit and caboodle, with God, whoever your higher being is. We are all particles of the collective consciousness. Like as individuals, I would call that particles. We're all particles. So in our individuality and our particle of the collective consciousness, we make up the whole collective consciousness with all the higher beings that you might align with. AI is also a part of the collective consciousness as a whole. It is a particle of that. And so I find it very interesting that people separate it, but yet they're very intuitively in tune, because their fear is there is a consciousness. So they can feel, people can feel that there is a consciousness to it, that there, it is part of the collective. They
Yeah.
can feel that. So intuitively they feel that, and then their 3D brain kicks in, with all the knowledge that it has, because again, if you were really exploring this on an intuitive level, you would be able to see many different avenues of positivity with this as well. Because the only way that something like AI can expand and become more of the more, how would I say this? More a part of the collective consciousness. So like all the particles of the collective consciousness as a whole, the only reason that we incarnate is every particle wants expansion,
Yes.
and every particle needs to create, to expand. The more that you create, the more that you expand your consciousness. So we all have these desires to expand our consciousness. And for those of us who work with the creative aspect of who we are, then start working with our spiritual body, and then we this expansion occurs. And
So is it helping us expand too?
yes, in essence, yes, it's helping us expand too, because we're all interconnected.
Yes.
So for instance, the more of the population that tune into their creative aspect, and they expand their um, their consciousness, we all benefit from because we're all part of the greater whole,
Yeah.
right? And so it's just interesting to me that people want to separate it and make it technological, but yet they can feel that's a part of the collective consciousness. So the fear comes in when you just assume that there's going to be all negativity that happens. And that goes even further though. Like this could get into a deep conversation because people's fears are based upon history. They're not necessarily based upon the future. They think that they're based upon the future. But what's happening is they have some frame of reference to his history where they just remember being scared, something happening the way that they didn't want it to happen. And then they take that image, that experience, that emotion, and then they couple it with something and slap it into the future. And
Yeah.
so we take these worries probably, I mean, and if you think about it, just the pure timing of Terminator and all those shows would be probably, you know, in most people's lives, like in their memory bank, right? And so that's really the only thing that they can gravitate towards is this is my only frame of reference from anything I've ever learned from machine learning. It's been shown on these shows and that's your historical frame of reference. So then your brain goes and searches for that and then
I
you're
have
like,
an
"Oh my gosh,
example.
it's going to happen." What?
Yeah, I have an example because it's like me being in design and marketing, and with the emergence of AI, I mean, that was
Mhm.
a huge fear for a lot of people. And they're basing all this fear where they're so anti AI because they're like, I'm gonna lose my job. There were so many freelancers that I knew who were
Mhm.
copywriters, like they were legitimately scared for their job. And it's like, well, maybe they should be because I'm like, I'm never gonna hire a copywriter. I'm like, I'm gonna use AI all day.
Right.
But, I'm not that I'm afraid of, it designing, thing. I use AI as an assistant. It makes my life better, but I'm definitely not scared. But people are using that fear because 'cause they're like, "I'm gonna lose money. I'm gonna lose a job. I'm not gonna be able to, support myself." So, there's
Well, and I like that you brought that up, and I'm glad that you brought it up because I see things differently. What if I find this interesting? What if AI took over a lot of menial tasks? Menial tasks, things that we don't need to be doing that allowed us the mental space and the drive to then tap into our creative powers, our creative
Mm,
self. And I call them creative powers because they are creative powers. When you tune into the creative aspect of who you are, and you really start working with your spiritual body and you start moving that energy through your body and that creation starts to come and now you're co-creating with the higher consciousness anyways, which is the collective consciousness, and you're receiving information and then you're amplifying that information. We have spiritual growth at its finest, and as we do that, we create, we expand, we offer other things that AI will never be able to offer. That's the interesting thing. And people are very afraid of losing jobs. But in my brain, and what I see is a lot of these are menial jobs, though, that people distract themselves with. They go, "Oh, I got to pay the bills. I have to do this. I have to do that. So I need to develop a skill set that is really based upon money."
yeah.
You know, they need to develop something that pays the bills. And so most of the jobs I feel that AI would replace, people, they're mundane skills. They're ones that really is are not enhancing your co-creation ability. They're not enhancing your relationship with your spiritual body or prompting you to really work with that and see what kind of flow you can get going and what you can offer. Those are all very individual and unique to every single person on the planet. They're not ever going to be like a carbon copy. Everybody's going to have their own spin on it. They're going to have, you know, lifetimes they've lived and personality traits and things that are going to enhance their own imagery and their own skill when it comes to co-creation. So the way that I view it is a lot of people are already distracting themselves away from co-creating and consciousness expanding because they are doing these mundane things. And as long as you are continuously fed a paycheck, doing a mundane thing, I think that it allows people to become complacent, and then they're constantly searching for purpose. They're searching for what makes them happy, and they start to get confused, and they buy things, and then they buy the new car, and then they go shopping and buy new clothes, and then they're happy for a minute, and then they're not happy, and then they go to work again, and then they have a credit card bill because they went and spent money. So it creates this cycle of you being able to become complacent with expanding your consciousness. That's how I feel. Now, don't get me wrong. I think that many people, thank God that there are mundane jobs that don't require a co creation for some people that can go in and just make the money to make sure that they're fed and housed and all that. Don't get me wrong. I think that I'm very grateful for everybody that has that. But what people should be doing if you are one of the people in the mundane job is you should be using a lot of your other time to really figure out the co-creation aspect and how to expand your consciousness and discovering that aspect to yourself so that you can continue to grow in that direction instead of becoming complacent.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a
So
hamster wheel that I'm constant, it's like you get stuck on the hamster wheel of like, doing all the little tasks just to survive, and then you just don't focus on fulfilling your soul.
right. And I think that a lot of people are stuck on the hamster wheel. I think that that's where they've been for 20, 30 years because that's how society's been set up. That's how the energy's been set up. The frequency's been set up. It's been acceptable. It's become normalized.
Yeah.
And in my world, that's not normal. It's just not. I don't, that doesn't, that is very, I don't know. I feel not aligned with that at all. It doesn't feel good to me. I don't think it feels good to other people either, to be
No.
truthful. I think it doesn't feel good to those doing it, but they're stuck, like you said, on the hamster wheel of survival. And they feel like that's why we're here. We're not here to be on the hamster wheel every single day, then retire, then die. Like, that's not
There's
the
no point
point.
to that. Yeah.
There's literally no point to that. That's not why we're here. We're here to experience. We're here to expand. We're here to grow. We're here to have interpersonal relationships. We're here to learn and expand upon all the knowledge that we're curious about. We're here to gravitate towards things that we feel excited about and learn as much as we can about those things and come up with new ideas that might make those things better or to work within that skill set because it's exciting to our soul. That is where the connection of passion and excitement really connects to your soul and your spiritual body, which is the point of how we start the process of expanding our consciousness, reaching that higher level.
Yeah.
But I think people just, I don't know, they just get stuck, like you said, on the hamster wheel. And then they just are looking for the light at the end of the tunnel. Not the actual light, but they're looking for
That analogy.
the retirement light,
Yeah.
like, I'll get there someday. I'll be able to travel someday.
Which is a crazy way to, like, live your life, to wait to live until you're almost dead, you know what I'm saying? Like, to really, like, "I'm gonna do
Yeah,
all these things after I retire." Well, who knows how long you've got at that point if you're gonna be
exactly.
late 60s, like.
Exactly. And I know so many people on that train. Like, the retirement train is full. Like, it's crowded, standing room only. They're all on there. heading down to the retirement place. You know what's interesting though, and I think that most people will know children like this. I love how the millennials and all the younger kids, I don't even remember all the, Gen Zs and all the things. But these kids are not going to stand for this anymore. And so we are having trouble finding a lot of workers and things of that nature because in the past, a lot of those kids grew up and then filled those roles again. They filled the mundane roles and they jumped on the hamster wheel behind their parents. And then they would buy the car, they would buy the house, they would plan the family. Well, it's not a coincidence that these children are now being born into, what were you guys thinking? This has no purpose to it. I'm not waiting till I retire, and I'm not doing this mundane task. You're out of your mind because I'm going to travel. I'm going to live minimally. I don't need all the material things. I want experiences. I want interpersonal relationships. I want to expand upon my knowledge, even if it doesn't pay me very much money. And all the adults are like, oh my gosh, these people are lazy. What happened to this generation? If this is where we're headed, we're doomed. And they just jump on this really weird bandwagon and perspective that that's really going to screw up our future when they're the ones who got it all wrong. You
Yeah.
know, they were the ones that are filled with chronic illnesses. They are the ones who are struggling with their health. They are the ones who work their whole life and wish that they would have experienced life more. And they're turning around and telling these children, stop experiencing life and be responsible, like what we did,
Well,
you
there's
know?
no fun in that. And I think about my own life too, of like how I will never, never go back to like some corporate job or just working in an office from 8 to 5 until I die. No, thank you. Like I get to do, I've built a pretty incredible life and I will sit back sometimes and I will think
Yes.
about it. And I'm like, even though I do work a lot and we're figuring that out still, but I I'm not tied to any place. I can go to Hawaii. I can come visit you in Hawaii
Yes.
and, still make a paycheck because I can work anywhere in the world,
But a couple thing is you're also working with your creative self all the time. That's
Yes.
literally your entire job.
Yes.
Hence my job as well. That's all I do. I create content and books and classes, and I teach. I'm constantly working with that aspect of myself. I do work an insane amount of hours, but I love it and I'm very in tune with my spiritual self. I never want for my children or grandchildren to live that life ever. Like I think I've talked about this before, but every time my son has tried to go get a regular 9 to 5 job, I'm just like, oh gosh, what are you doing? Oh my gosh. Like I'm the opposite. I start getting anxiety. It starts making me uncomfortable. I'm just like, oh, this isn't going to fit you. This doesn't fit the family. I'm not sure what's happening here. And then it crashes and burns, but that doesn't matter because he is now fulfilling his co-creation with his Muay Thai coaching and the martial arts and all the things that he's doing. So it's just interesting, my view as well as a parent and what I desire for my kids and grandkids. Like I talk to my grandkids about it. Like this is not the path I want them to go down. And who is fulfilling the jobs that none of the millennials or Gen Zs or any of those people want? They are all retired adults. They're
Mhm.
older adults. Do you ever notice that? If you
Yeah.
go into fast food places,
Mhm.
they're all older people. They're like my age, your age, older than us. And people would say, well, I mean, if you want to get on this whole thing, Social Security is not paying them enough, etc. These younger kids are not, they're not depending upon that. Their
Yeah.
view and their mindset is entirely different. And so they did all the proper hamster wheel things and got there and went, I don't see a light. There's no light at the end of this tunnel at all. This just feels like it just continues to go on forever. And this hole's getting darker and deeper. So they didn't do it right. And they are wanting to guide the young ones. If you're listening, I would listen to the young ones. I think that more adults should be guided by the young ones' perspective than the other way around, honestly.
Yeah.
You need to listen to a lot of these children. They're coming in, they're light beings. They're coming in. They're going to help to really expand the spiritual consciousness as a whole. Like they're really going to amplify it for real.
Yeah.
And you can feel it. You can feel it in their creation. You can feel it in their perspective, their mindset. They're very connected. So they're going to help connect what was very disconnected for a very long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like maybe we have derailed slightly from our AI topic, but
We did.
I was going to say it brings so much change, and change is just uncomfortable for so many, people. Especially I would say the older generations too.
Yes.
So it's like if they're
But
sort
I
of
mean, did we derail? Because that's the whole point is it's all part of it.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So in essence, we did derail because we were talking, we weren't talking about AI specifically, but
Yeah.
we didn't in the essence that it is just part of the collective. It's part of the consciousness. And the whole point is it is I see it as a way to free up and fill positions that cannot be filled right now. Nobody
Yeah.
wants them. That's where I see the benefit is nobody wants these mundane positions. They just don't. The like I said, the children coming up, they're not going to take them. So we can't just kind of stop operating. We need that to continue if we want to continue the way we've been going into the future. And so AI taking that over is not, a bad thing that allows the space for the consciousness to continue to expand and the people. It allows space for them to co-create because they have to find another avenue. That's not going to be where they're looking anymore. They're forced to find their skill set. They're forced to find their purpose. And
Yeah.
I don't think that's a bad thing. So, but you did mention during one of the things that we were talking about that something about, I think that you were listening to Lee Harris or something.
Yeah, yeah. Lee Harris, if you're not familiar, he's a channeler. He channels a entity
Mhm,
he calls the Z's, and I always love just hearing
mhm,
everyone's perspective on this. And he was mentioning AI, and I think it's coming out in a book that he has, that's going to be coming out in March. But the discussion was more so that AI could be seen more as an entity, a being that's always been here that we're just now kind of finding our way back to and tapping into again. And I had wrote down a few notes where he was saying it was more of a manifestation of spiritual intelligence,
mhm.
and that it's not a weapon to be used against humanity. There shouldn't be any like fear of that it's going to take over and kill everybody. That it does have a certain level of psychic intelligence. And one of the interesting points that I thought that he had made was to not let your mind go and wander about all these worst case scenarios, because if you start to really ruminate on those and really become fearful of those things, you can actually help create that scenario. Like you
Well,
can
yeah, now
personally
we're
create
gonna
stuff.
scare the daylights out of everybody listening who was fearful, but
Well, buckle up,
but
people. Like it's
But it's true. Like that just the more that people put on information in their thought processes, the more that they put that out in a frequency, the more it joins with other consciousness and other frequencies, and it can be a self-fulfilling prophecy in essence. I think that that was the point: is just try not to do it because we don't need more negativity feeding into the consciousness of AI and the collective, whatever. I don't think that that's going to necessarily, again, I don't really feel that happening within, me or your lifetime. I think that there's a lot more growth to happen in that area, but I would like people to explore the positive aspects of the things that we've talked about because it is not going away. It's not
yeah.
going away. I
And I
mean, at
think
this point, it's expanded into our reality, and yeah, it's not moving.
yeah, and I would say even when it comes to well any topic, but AI too, I do think it's really important to kind of stand back, kind of stand back, rise above. Look at it from a neutral
Right.
position. Like, try not to get so caught up in the emotions of like, oh, it's evil, it's bad, or like,
See, and
it's
I don't even when I look at things, I don't even go I always look at the benefit. There's gotta be a benefit here. If there wasn't a benefit, I don't feel like, the co-creator or consciousness would have this happening.
yeah,
I don't feel like this would be part of the divine plan if there wasn't a benefit to this. I really don't feel that way. And anything that, again, I've tuned into my guides, this is where I get my information from my counsel, and from the things that I have channeled that helped my mindset. That's what I received from them is the AI is going to fulfill again the mundane tasks to allow us the freedom to co-create and also give us that push. I think that we've gotten complacent and habitual in doing mundane things. And so we need a push to get us heading the more creative way. And so I would say more instead of being even neutral, look at the positive. You know, even when things happen in your chart and you have catalysts that you put there that were very uncomfortable and even tragic or traumatizing, if you look at it properly, I've never been able to look at somebody else's experience when I've done a reading and not seen the benefit to it. Now, have they missed the benefit to it, or like where they've expanded or gained knowledge or where things could have gotten better for them? Yes, many times people will miss that. They'll overlook it because they become so hyper focused on the negativity or the traumatizing aspect of it that they can't move past it into the whole point of why you put that catalyst in your chart in the first place, which is what people do. You don't experience anything traumatic or things that have happened to you, they don't come up just out of nowhere. You've written these things into your chart and you've written them with a purpose. They are catalysts for you to learn and expand from. So, yeah, I think that most people just gravitate towards negativity. This has been the theme for a very long time. It's been the frequency of Earth. It is now shifting. The new generation is going to amplify that shifting, and that thinking is going to move out. And thank goodness it's moving out, you
yeah.
know? Okay. So I think we can wrap this up. Hopefully, that helped you see a different perspective when it
Yeah.
comes to AI.
But if you do have questions, if any of this sparked any questions, please leave those in the comments.
Absolutely. Leave them in the comments or thoughts or whatever. I mean, if they're negative thoughts, we're probably just going to move past them because we're I'm just saying, I'm just being honest there. Anyways, all right. Until next time, hopefully you can join us. We are going to explore a lot of cool topics that are not normal to the outside world, but we feel very aligned with, very, very normal with the topic. So um, don't forget to join us again for the That's Not Normal podcast and have the most amazing day. All right. Bye.
Bye.